One thing we all love to get in Guild Wars 2 is a new weapon for our favorite class. We typically get one every expansion, but Secrets of the Obscure has kept us waiting so far. But that wait is over, at least temporarily anyway. Until December 3rd, we get to test and play with the beta build weapons for each class. My name is Sizzix, and as a Warrior main of 11 years now, I'll be discussing the facts and my opinions on the staff for Warrior so far. We'll be going over what the abilities are and how they work, their animations, and my opinions on them. I'll also be covering the core support staff build I've created and been playing in the beta, how that went, and some additional synergy I'd like to see from traits, then closing out with some final thoughts. So settle in, fellow adventurers, grab a slice of birthday cake off that platter, and let's get started. Up first, we're looking at our skills. I'm only covering PvE skills here as that's my bread and butter. Slot number 1 is our auto attack, or rather unauto attack. I'll explain that in a few minutes. So for balanced strike and reverse strike, they're simple damaging attacks and take half a second each. We finish our combo here with Inspiring Whirl, which is a 3/4 second attack that also pops a regen on up to 5 allies within a radius of 240 from us, with a full set of Harriers that can last long enough that you can keep 100% regen uptime. Mechanically, this is fine. I'd like to see a little bit more damage on here, or maybe even changing regen to barrier to take away from the fact that so many classes already spam regen out easily. The real issue I have with this auto attack chain is twofold. One, the animations are very heavy. I'd really prefer if they lightened these up and went with some lighter staff technique here. Second, Inspiring Whirl feels very slow and has a horrible sound effect for something that pops off so often in combat. It's so magical and piercing, I can't quite explain it, but the vibe is just not it for my warrior. Moving on to slot number 2, we're looking at Valiant Leap. 8-second recharge, 3/4 second cast time. This is a range 600 targeted leap skill, dealing some damage and even more healing. The attack radius is 180, but the boon radius comes in at a reasonable 300. Up to 5 allies within that radius will get healed, get 5 stacks of might, and gain fury. Mechanically, I have almost nothing to complain about here. Almost. I will say this really feels like it should have a burst combo finisher attached to it. The entire staff moveset has 0 combo finishers, and that feels really bad. Other than that, I have no negative feedback. Good skill animation, good concept, just needs a finisher to really make it punchy. Boy, oh boy, grab yourself another slice of cake because it's time for slot number 3. Line Breaker. 12-second recharge, targeted rush ability, 1200 range. You choose to target either an enemy or an ally with this, and the effects are different based on your situation. If you target an enemy, you strike the target for a good bit of damage, as well as apply weakness and cripple to it and 4 other targets in the 300 radius upon your impact. If you target an ally, you heal them and up to 4 other targets in the 300 radius for a significant amount, grant them protection, Aegis, and unblockable, as well as break any stun on the allied target that you targeted. Now, conceptually, this is an interesting ability, but the execution is painful to me. The Omnitas meta event really showed me the issues with it quickly. When we were zerging up against Norris, it was extremely difficult for me to pick out a specific person to help quickly, unless I used the squad UI. The thing is, it's much easier for me to visually pick out the health bars in the center of the screen, but then more difficult to click on those in a zerg situation. Then, even when I did, it became difficult to retarget Norris as easily as his target crosshair is way up high, and I kept having to zoom all the way out, as tab target usually doesn't work either on this fight. The second and equally bad issue is the pathing for it. This is just like the Warrior Greatsword Rush, which has always been atrocious and has gotten no better since I started playing this game. You can very easily run past your target, not make it, have them move and your rush AI doesn't update so you rush into nothing, have your character get stuck on the tiniest little object and just run in place, and overall just not an efficient way to do this. While I really do love the novel aspect of this skill, and I appreciate ArenaNet stepping out and trying something outside the box, I just don't think this iteration is quite where I'd like to see the final version. Guild Wars 2 has always been very unlike a more traditional MMO, like World of Warcraft or Final Fantasy XIV, with its lack of Holy Trinity, and as such there's historically been so little need to target allies specifically in the heat of the moment. I just don't think it flows well in the game. Overall, the skill effect is good, and I did quite enjoy dashing in to save people, and it did quite often work to great effect. It's just a flow killer in PvE, and I don't even think I'd want to try it in PvP right now. Rushing forward ourselves to skill slot number 4, we've got Snap Pull. 12-second cooldown, half-second cast time. Does some decent damage, pulls up to 5 enemies within a range of 600 to you, and causes 6 stacks of vulnerability. The animation is cool and smooth, the sound is cool, the mechanical effects are all solid. This one could ship to final release as is, and I'd be satisfied. I have no notes on this one. It's a fun skill, use it. Now, our final slot skill. Number 5, which is Bullet Catcher and Defiant Roar. Bullet Catcher is the primary here, a 2-second block with a 20-second cooldown. When triggered, you block incoming attacks for 2 seconds and grant yourself boon duration. For each attack blocked, up to 3, Defiant Roar will be empowered with extra healing, and the boon duration will be extended. After the block expires, you now have about a 2 to 3 second window to cast Defiant Roar. Doing so will heal up to 5 allies within a radius of 360, a good chunk of health, plus additional per blocked attack, capping at 3. Having 3 blocked attacks nearly doubles the heal. As you can see here, my Defiant Roar has a base of 4,514, and if I block 3 attacks, the bonus would total 4,185. That's a good heal. Those allies also gain resolution. I have a major and minor problem with this ability. The minor problem is that I don't like the Defiant Roar sound effect. For a skill called Defiant Roar, it's just a magic pulse sound effect. I could really go for a battle cry or something here to make it feel more like Warrior and less like a Guardian. The major problem brings us back to our slot number 1 un-auto attack issue. Yeah, I bet you thought I forgot to bring that up. Well, you see, the reason I'm calling it the un-auto attack currently is that if you have your auto attack set up, Bullet Catcher will nearly instantly be cancelled out by your number 1 skill, rendering it pointless and going on a long 20-second cooldown. So, if you're going to play with Staff Warrior right now, for the love of all that is Char, disable your auto attack and get used to button mashing for a while. Now, while I say this is a major issue, I fully recognize the fact that ArenaNet has already been flooded with these comments on the forum, and this should not make it into the live retail release, so it's just a problem for us right now. Last, but certainly not least, is every warrior's favorite part, the new burst skill. Path to Victory is our first ranged burst skill on a melee weapon, and boy does it feel good. With a 6-second cooldown and a half-second cast time, when you use Path to Victory, you'll damage and inflict weakness on up to 5 enemies in front of you with a shockwave ranging out to 450. You'll also heal and grant regeneration to up to 5 allies within a 360 radius of you. The healing done being based on the bars of adrenaline you expend. I personally would like to see this damage increase a bit, as well as maybe dropping a light field near you or causing a projectile finisher with the shockwave, because again, we're missing some synergy from this weapon set right now. But overall, I quite like it. As a whole, the staff skills are, in my opinion, in the right direction, but could use some quality of life tweaks to really dial them in to where the community would like to see them, based on my personal experience and reading the forum for a little while. Good work so far, ArenaNet. Hope you're listening out there somewhere. Time to get to the build I was using. I wanted to start off with a pure support-focused core warrior build. I wanted to give everyone out there some accessible ideas on how they might incorporate this weapon into their beta builds now, or even in the future once it drops live. Starting with Discipline, I'm running 313. Stalwart Focus increases healing to others and my own incoming healing. Obvious choice here. I went doubled standards as I just wanted to focus on staff and support overall. I could see maybe swapping to Destruction of the Empowered, but I'm not sure it helps our DPS too much here. Finally, I ran Burst Mastery to increase burst damage and restore adrenaline because staff felt very adrenaline hungry compared to others. Admittedly, I see how Heightened Focus could be a good grab too for the quickness buff, but if we're in group content, we've probably got a very high quickness uptime, and recharging burst with low adrenaline generation isn't going to do us much good. Tactics was the second tree, and I ran 2-2-3 here. Soldier's Comfort, which adds a heal and protection to Soldier's Focus procs, which synergizes with the minor trait Marching Orders, and buffs and heals our allies within a radius of 600 of us whenever we hit with a burst skill, thus increasing Path to Victory's team heals. I ran Shrug It Off to auto peel conditions and stuns, though I can very much see Empower allies being a better choice here if you're not running any other condition peels, which I wasn't. I also ran Phalanx Strength, so when I granted myself Might, it went to nearby allies also. Lastly, I ran Defense in a 1-1-2 line. Shieldmaster was an obvious choice for me here to add a Reflect to Bullet Catcher and gain Adrenaline while blocking. Lesser Endure Pain was a very meh choice for me here. Resilient Roll is probably a better choice overall, but I just don't love these choices for staff right now. What I'd really like to see is staff get added to Merciless Hammer and rename it to something just bludgeoning related so we can deal some more damage to disabled foes, and that would also help with how adrenaline hungry staff feels currently, because you would then gain adrenaline using Snap Pull as it disables foes. Finally, I ran Cleansing Ire to gain adrenaline when hit and cleanse some conditions when using burst skills. Stalwart Strength here would be a great synergy combo with Hammermaster if they update it to work with staff as well, which would also solve the lack of stability staff currently has for a support build unless otherwise buffed with your utility slots. So, as an 11-year Warrior player, what's my final verdict? Overall, I would give Staff Warrior a personal 7 out of 10. I legitimately had fun playing it, and it felt like it breathed some new life and felt very different to how I've been playing Warrior since a little while before End of Dragons. I had some epic moments where I saved the day for some people, felt like I really contributed to the team and kept folks in the fight and had fun while doing it. Mechanically, I would like to see a bit more damage out of the weapon set and clean up the slot 3 line breaker mechanics at the absolute bare minimum. Some more meaningful synergy options in the skill tree would be nice and could even solve the damage issue. Combo finishers and fields from this would be very nice as well. Gameplay wise, I think it needs some animation and sound design reworking, especially the visuals and audio for the slot 1 moves, and the sound effect for Defiant Roar has got to go. Fixing these alone would bring it up to an 8 out of 10 for me. While I currently enjoy it and will probably rock out with a support warrior build to play with friends once it goes live, I don't think Staff Warrior is going to necessarily take Tyria by storm as the new meta support build for all groups. But between you and me, part of the reason I love Guild Wars 2 is that I enjoy not following the meta sometimes. I do still think it will be a strong support build, and maybe the next expansion will bring even more synergy to make it better. Well, adventurers, thank you all for sticking with me to the end of the video. This is the first time I've really actually put my opinions on mechanics and builds out there like this, and would love to hear what you fellow adventurers have to say down in the comments below. Once you're done with that, click here to watch my 5 tips for Inner Nyos in Through the Veil. Tip number 3 is a must-see if you're new to the High Tor's Gate meta event. And until next time, let fortune favor the bold, my adventuring friends.